I felt that it was about survival. I felt that it was about this sort of most basic thing that this woman, mother, wife, friend needs to survive for her child. And it was the most simple idea and the most, for me, resonant. It got me to my core. And I felt like if I could tap into that, if I could tap into this idea of survival, that then there was something in that the audience could understand. And there was something in that they would feel too.
Hello and welcome to My Hollywood Story. I am Stacey Wilson Hunt. My guest today is the multi-Emmy-winning actor, producer, and director, Elisabeth Moss, whose critically acclaimed Hulu series, The Handmaid's Tale, just wrapped its explosive 6th and final season. If you're a super fan like I am, you're likely still recovering. And by the way, if you haven't yet seen the final 2 episodes of the show, there are some minor spoilers toward the end of this podcast. Elisabeth, or Lizzie, as I've come to know her in the last 12 years, is a truly unique talent whose acting career almost became synonymous with peak TV when she emerged a fan favorite on AMC's Mad Men, for which she received 6 Emmy nominations. Lizzie shares with me how, as a young actor, Winona Ryder took her under her wing on the set of Girl Interrupted. She also describes how it feels to have a 25-year friendship with her West Wing and Handmaid's co-star, Bradley Whitford. She also tells me what she hopes is the lasting legacy of Hulu's juggernaut drama. My Hollywood Story is sponsored by Mattel Films and recorded at Neue House Hollywood. If you like what you hear, give us a follow, leave a review, and let us know what you think. Welcome, Elisabeth. It's so nice to see you and have you on my show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
And firstly, I have to congratulate you. I've had the pleasure of seeing the last 2 episodes of The Handmaid's Tale final season early, so I could react to those episodes with you. And I have to say, holy shit. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does it feel to not only have ended the series, but on the note with which you did end it?
I think it's starting to feel as if it ended, but up until very, very recently, like maybe today, it just hasn't felt like it's over. So, and I don't know when that's going to happen. I think because we just did the final mix for episode 10, like literally 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before this.
And you directed
recording.
The final 2 episodes. Let's tell people. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So we did the final mix for 10 3 weeks ago, as of when this will air. And, you know, it just doesn't feel over. I feel like I'm excited to be able to talk about it because it's been so long that I've known what was going to happen since 2023. It's
a long time.
Mm-hmm, that's when I first heard the outline, well, all the outlines for the season and then the outline for 9. And so it's been a long time that I've held on to this. So I'm excited. I'm excited, but it's also a little weird that people know.
Right.
Because I've been protecting it for so long.
Right, and suddenly everyone's going to know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, that's right. You know about it.
Well, and as we know, the fans of the show are quite rabid in their enthusiasm.
Yes.
So I can say as a fan and also someone who's covered the show since the beginning, people will be very, very pleased.
I hope so.
I think they will.
I hope so. Thank you.
And if they aren't, there's nothing we can do about it.
It's over. It's
over.
Too late.
Enjoy.
Exactly. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
So I want to go way back to the beginning of your story,
Uh-oh.
which begins in Los Angeles.
Okay.
You are a native Angelino. And is it true that you were born to a British father and an American mother?
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds so formal.
Doesn't
Yes.
it? Well, British people are very formal, Elisabeth. And what did they do for work when you were a young person?
So they're both musicians.
Okay.
My father's passed, but
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. He was a musician and a manager, and my mom is a musician as well. So they're both in the music business. Jazz and blues.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have music predilections as a kid in terms of performing?
Not really. I took the piano, but I was dancing and acting from such a young age that was really kind of my profession.
Right.
Music was always a very big part of my life. But in my family, you didn't like learn an instrument just for fun. You were very professional about it.
It wasn't just a hobby.
It wasn't a hobby, exactly. And so my brother plays like the bass, the guitar, the drums, the piano, and also like can DJ and make his own music.
Wow.
And if you weren't going to become a professional at the instrument, you kind of like didn't do it.
Wow.
So because I was so busy acting and dancing, I didn't have time for
How
piano.
could you possibly have time?
Exactly, because I was a child as well. I was also 6.
And when did you start dancing?
When I was 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, was that something you discovered on your own? Like, mommy, daddy, I want to do this?
I think it was one of those, like, you know, little girls go to ballet class kind of things. And then I just loved it so much. And like, I don't remember a time when I didn't want to dance and I didn't want to act. And I've talked to my mom about it, and she says, as far as especially acting, she's like, you just kind of kept wanting to do it. So I would take you on an audition, or you'd get a part and you loved it, and then you just wanted to do it again. And so she was like, okay, great. If you continue to like it, let's do it.
So you're the 3rd dancer I've had on my show so far.
Really?
Your friend Leslie Linka Glatter.
Oh, of course.
Amazing.
Yes.
And also Amy Sherman Palladino, who created Gilmore Girls and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
And then we talked a lot about the invaluable training that dancing affords a young person. What did you take away from dancing?
Oh, so much. I was just talking to, I'm doing a show with Kerry Washington right now.
With Leslie Linka Glatter.
With Leslie Linka Glatter, who's going to do 3 episodes for us. The first one, and then 4 and 5. And who's an absolute
amazing
rock star and an incredible person. Oh my God. I just have to mention that I told her this when we first had our meeting about this show, Imperfect Women. And I said, you know, Leslie, you were probably the first female director I ever worked with.
And you worked together on West Wing and Mad Men.
And Mad Men, exactly.
Wow, she was really the first female director?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So she was the first. I mean, I knew that there were female directors, but she was the first woman that I was like, oh, cool.
Wow.
You know, and actually this stat's really interesting. I'm sorry, I'll get back to your question.
No, please, I love stats.
I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but I looked up like how many directors on Mad Men were male as to like female, and I think it's like 4 or 5.
It's pretty small.
It's very small.
I looked up the same figure for Sopranos, and they had 1 woman director over the course of the entire series.
Okay, wow, that's
so,
actually
Leslie is a
great.
true pioneer.
Yeah, no, truly, she
is.
And she's also the most kind and generous and collaborative person, despite having had to really be a woman at a time when it wasn't easy to be a woman in that role. And you think that would make somebody harder maybe and a little tough.
Well, she talks about how she had so many men supporting her and mentoring her in her career early on. So I think that probably cushioned some of that blow.
She has. She's talked to me about that too. Anyway, okay. More about Leslie later.
We love Leslie Linka
Yes,
Glatter.
we love Leslie Linka Glatter very much. Oh yeah. So, I mean, so much. I feel like discipline primarily. Having to practice every day. Having to have self-discipline. So when you're a dancer, it's a funny thing. Like there isn't a lot of, it's not a team sport. So you're on your own, and getting better at something, whatever it is up to you. You can have teachers, of course, and you have class, but like it's really up to you in the mirror. And you're looking at yourself and you're judging yourself and you're correcting and you're self-correcting and you're pushing yourself. So I think that, and it's similar to being a musician as well.
Sure, and your body is your instrument in this case. And you have to learn how your body moves and what that means when you tell yourself to do something and to actually watch yourself do it. That must be so invaluable.
Yes, and that's the second thing I was going to say was the other thing it gave me was I have zero problem watching myself because I spent 10 years watching myself in the mirror.
That's not the case for a lot of actors.
Very much so, and I totally respect that. I get it. It's like a weird thing to be able to do because it's sort of introverting, you know, it's like you're looking at yourself, so I totally get that, but for me, I'm just used. For 10 years, I stared in the mirror at myself in a leotard. So like I know every angle of my body and face. So I have no problem watching myself on screen. I have no
self-editing
ego about it. I have no. I really, it's totally fine with me.
That's a really nice thing to have early on in your life.
It's good as a director. That's for sure.
I was going to say, and we'll get back to that
because
I was just had this glimmer of an idea that certainly is going to impact your directing style.
Yeah.
So when you became an actor professionally as a child, which you did quite early in your life. Were you actively auditioning? Was your mom like a stage mom or your dad like a stage dad? And what was that process like?
No, as far as the stage mom and dad, because they were musicians. So everybody was in the arts. It was very common to kind of be in some sort of artistic thing. My mom took me to auditions, but it's not like I was like auditioning every day. It never felt like my whole life. That's the other thing that ballet brought me, which I'm really grateful for, is because I was dancing, that took up more time. And that took up more of my mind. So the acting was almost sort of the second thing that I was doing, and ballet was the first. Okay. And so it made the acting thing not as important, which was good. Right. Because it meant that it wasn't the end of the world if I didn't get a job. It wasn't soul crushing if I didn't get the audition. You know what I mean? Sure. It just was not as important, which I think was good.
For sure, especially for a young child.
Yes. Right. And I was not famous as a child actor either, which was also, I think, a good thing.
You were a busy actor, but you weren't Macaulay Culkin.
No. Right. I was allowed to like kind of become 15, 16, 17 before anyone knew, which is still young, obviously, but different.
Sure. And how did you balance this with learning and school and homework?
Sort of not very well. I mean, I got my GED when I was 15.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I wanted to work more.
Okay.
And I wanted to be able to work as an adult, and I didn't want to go through the whole emancipation thing.
Sure.
So I used to hate, I was just talking to these little kids on set the other day because they were like, I could tell they like didn't want to go home when they were wrapped. And I think it's 9 or 9.5 hours in California. It's like 6 hours
legally
plus
have
school.
To leave.
Yeah, which is great and absolutely as it should be. But I just remember being so disappointed when I had to go home and everyone got to stay. And I was so bummed.
You had FOMO.
I really did. I was so bummed. I just wanted to stay on set where it was so much fun.
So you enjoyed the set life.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I always felt at home on set.
And I know you still have that feeling.
Yeah, I do.
Well. This episode of My Hollywood Story is brought to you by the Starz Limited series 3 Women. Shailene Woodley, Betty Gilpin, DeWanda Wise, and Gabrielle Creevy star in an intimate, haunting portrayal of female desire that finds 3 women on a crash course to radically overturn their lives. 3 Women, for your Emmy consideration for Outstanding Limited Series and streaming now on the Starz app. So I did a deep dive into some of your early appearances, Elisabeth, and I found some wonderful episodes of Picket Fences.
Oh, yes.
And I believe you did 7 episodes of Picket Fences, if the data on the internet is correct.
Yeah.
And you played a very precocious character named Cynthia Parks.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember shooting these scenes?
I do. I remember very well. It's funny. It's like not something that comes up as often as it should, because I sometimes have to remind people that that's actually where my like television career.
This is why you're on the show today, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Because you really
for this express purpose.
Exactly. Leave it up to you to get down to the real truth of the matter.
Well, I also love David E. Kelly. I love that show. Yeah. Just a great family drama, but quirky and strange, like all of David's stuff.
I know. Yeah. It's like such a cool show.
Yeah.
I remember I got to play like a character, which was fun.
And she was recurring.
Yes.
So it wasn't just one episode.
Exactly. She was recurring, and she was with the little boy and the family in class. And I just remember getting to like be a character. So I got to act. I got to like be this sort of like precocious, like you said, child who would say sort of like outlandish things in the class. And I remember enjoying that. She was smart, and I remember knowing very much that I was like playing a character. I often say this, like, I don't feel any different now than I did then. Like,
I mean, as a performer.
Yeah. I at the time I took it really seriously. It was a profession. Like it was very much like, this is what I do for a living.
Wow. You even had that sense at that young age.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
You're a prodigy, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
You would never say that about yourself, but
no.
I recently rediscovered a very sweet movie that I'd forgotten about called Anywhere But Here.
Oh, yeah.
1999, director Wayne Wang, whom I adore. He did Smoke and a number of wonderful movies. And also written by Al Sargent, one of my favorite screenwriters, who passed away in the last couple of years.
Wow, I don't even know if I knew that.
I didn't realize that he was married to Laura Ziskin, just one of the great screenwriters.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize that at the time either, that he had written it.
I didn't know he wrote that.
But it's a sweet movie. Susan Sarandon and Natalie Portman play a mother and daughter who've moved to Los Angeles from the Midwest. And you play one of Natalie's character's friends, high school friends. And there's a sweet scene, I don't know if you remember this, in the bedroom, where Natalie's character's calling her biological dad, whom she doesn't really know. And then you all hug her after the phone call doesn't go well. And it was so fascinating to watch you and Natalie, because I see a lot of connective tissue between the two of you.
Yeah.
And to be in that moment with each other on the cusp of such great careers. What do you remember about watching her work and also your interactions with her on set?
I remember being very starstruck because she was already a star.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she'd already done, I think, Star Wars.
I think she had maybe done, oh, you're right.
Because
yes,
this
was 99.
17, yeah.
Right.
So it was quite a bit later in my my career. So I remember being very starstruck by her, and just, she was like Natalie Portman,
Yes.
and she was super nice at the time, but I didn't talk to her that much because she was Natalie Portman,
Right,
the movie star, So I remember being very just like kind of shy around
Starstruck.
her. Yeah. And then I've seen her after that, like many years later.
Did she remember working with you?
I believe so, yes. I think, no, she did. She did remember. I didn't think she was going to remember, and she did remember.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was very, very nice. But at the time, I was very starstruck. It really had a hard time
But it was
talking to her.
interesting that you would have the presence of mind to be starstruck.
Oh my
by her,
God,
when
yeah.
You knew her work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was, a big star at the time, for sure. And she had done so much beautiful work at the time,
Really.
even by then. I mean, because she's a couple years older than me, so I guess she must have been like 19.
And she was so young too when
Yeah,
she started.
she was really young at the time. See, for me, I thought she was like so much older than me, but she really
No,
wasn't.
you were all kids.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Well, you were sort of like 13 going on 30, right?
Yeah, well, so was she too. Yeah.
Right. And of course, we can't talk about your career without talking about Girl Interrupted.
Yeah.
One of the greats, also in 1999. I love James Mangold. I saw him recently for the Bob Dylan movie he made.
Sure.
And he and I spoke about just how formative that movie was for him as well. And just to remind people who was in this movie, as if we could forget, Angelina Jolie in her Oscar-winning role. Yeah. Winona Ryder, the late Brittany Murphy, whom we miss terribly, Clea Duvall, Jared Leto, Whoopi Goldberg.
Crazy.
Really just star-studded. And you were about 15 or 16, I think, very young still in this movie.
Yeah.
I was always such a fan of Winona Ryder, and I was wondering, being on set with her, and also speaking about someone who'd had a veteran status at that point. She started in 1986 or 7. What did you glean being around her that you kind of filed away as sort of, oh, that's a movie star, that's longevity, and how did she conduct herself in a way that you felt like, okay, I see this person working, and this feels like good lesson for me?
Such a good question. Yeah, she was so kind to me.
Oh.
And I had to wear this prosthetic makeup, right?
Your character had burned her own face.
Yes.
Very tragic character.
Very tragic character based on a true story. And so 3/4 of my face had these prosthetic makeup on. And that was it was not easy.
No.
It was also earlier in the days of prosthetics, so it took like 3 hours to do. It probably would be like an hour now.
Right.
And, I was around all these much more, I felt, accomplished actors than me. Obviously, not just Angelina and Winona, but like Clea and Brittany, and everybody was just so talented and older. Absolutely. And I was the youngest by like a few years. And so, it was like a lot. It was a big movie for me. And I had auditioned like a few times. It was a big deal to get that movie. Everyone in LA auditioned for it.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And so she took me under her wing, and she was so kind to me, and I'll never forget it. And I actually, strangely, have not seen her or spoken to her since.
Really?
It's super
That's
strange.
impossible.
I know. It's not by no
You guys
design.
have to have lunch or
I
something.
mean, I would love to. I've been like, I should reach out, but it just hasn't happened. But she was just, I've been just wanting to thank her.
I know she would appreciate hearing that. She's very kind.
I'm
and
sure she
I don't
still
think,
is.
And I'm sure at the time she couldn't have any sense of how she was affecting your life.
No, probably not. No, she was just doing it because she's nice and I think liked me.
Right.
And we would watch movies in her trailer. So she, obviously, as you know, she's a huge film buff.
Totally.
And she would show me movies.
What did she show you?
Everything under the sun, just black and white movies that I hadn't seen, old movies and foreign films that I hadn't seen. So my point is, there were two things that I really learned from her. One, that the biggest movie star in the world could be also the nicest person in the world. She had no reason to be nice to me. She had no reason to be anything other than polite to me. You know what I mean? We didn't even have a lot of scenes together.
No, you didn't.
Not like we had a bond. I was playing her sister or something.
Right.
There was nothing selfish about it whatsoever. She just was a nice person who seemed to take a liking to me. And that also you should know about cinema. And that you could be known for your acting and known for your beauty, and then you could also take your craft seriously and watch movies. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool, that this beautiful movie star who could just totally get by on her cheekbones,
right?
And like, she was also obviously like known as this incredible actress, but she didn't need to watch all of these movies. And she took it so seriously, and she was so intelligent about it. And and she wasn't leaning on the movie stardom of her world. And I just thought that was so cool. So those were the two things I really kind of took away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have any special memories of Brittany Murphy at all? I actually spent an evening in New York with her and her mom at an after party.
Really?
I had covered this event and I interviewed her on the red carpet.
Yeah.
And I was so moved by their relationship. They were so close.
So close.
She was one of the most kind-hearted, raw, emotional people, and almost like you wanted to protect her. That was my feeling when I met her, and I was only with her for one night.
Yeah.
What was she like on set?
She was very inspiring. She was a beautiful actress. The number one thing I remember about her was just how talented she was. She was so raw and so open and truly just so interesting to watch. You never knew where she was going to go. I mean, I think had she lived, I do think she would have been known as one of the greatest actresses of our time. She was that woman, right? She was also incredibly sweet, full of life. And I do remember how close she was to her mom, because I'm super close to my mom. She was just full of life. She was full of life, laughing all the time, fun, energy, sweet.
She really wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the last time I saw her was at the premiere for Girl Interrupted.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that was the last time I saw her. And I remember us going to the bathroom together, and she just was talking, full of her usual energy and like sort of bubbly, sweet self.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was the last time I saw her.
Well, that's how we will remember her.
Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
very special.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say a very special thank you to Neuhaus for being the exclusive venue partner of My Hollywood Story. Neuhaus is a gorgeous private work and social space for creators, innovators, and thought leaders to connect in Los Angeles and New York. As a Neuhaus member myself, I can tell you firsthand how amazing it is to work inside such iconic, beautifully designed buildings, while also enjoying elevated hospitality and thought-provoking cultural experiences. To me, Neuhaus has completely redefined the ideal environment for creative potential and progress. To learn more and apply for membership, visit neuhaus.com. And we were speaking earlier about one of my favorite shows, The West Wing.
Yep.
Have you heard of it? You were in 25 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, from 1999 to 2006.
This is very informative, Stacey. I do appreciate
Elizabeth
this.
Moss, this is your life.
Yes, I love all these facts. Now.
And for those who don't know, I don't know how you couldn't know, but you played Zoe Bartlett, the daughter of Martin Sheen and Stockard Channing, who, of course, were the president and first lady. Yeah. And we were also speaking earlier about this show and how it wasn't an automatic sure thing. Yeah. And I wanted to know, what do you remember about the launch of the show? And of course, this was Aaron Sorkin's big debut series. Mm-hmm. He had come from the theater. He'd done A Few Good Men. But this was a big swing for a broadcast entity to invest in a very, very talkative guy in his work. Yeah. So tell me what you remember about the perception within NBC about how this, and also Warner Brothers, about how the show was going to do.
Yeah. I was on set the night that it premiered. I think it was like a Wednesday.
So you were working, and then that was premiere night.
Yeah, I think it was my second episode I was shooting, because it was back in the network days when like they made an episode and then it was on like
right,
the
like
next
you'd
week.
shoot last week and it airs like a week later.
It was insane. It was literally crazy. So we were really early in the season, and I remember we were doing one of those like legendary walk and talks. Sure, right.
He
in
invented
the West Wing. Yep. And I remember everybody was really nervous. Like I remember the cast feeling nervous and feeling like. The general kind of sense was like, that I got anyway, was like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if this is going to, not because they didn't think it was going to work, but because they thought it was too smart and too fast. And it was like nothing that had ever been on television before. And
it was very dense too, like with information.
Dense, absolutely. Right. And like, was the audience going to get it? Was it going to be too smart for the network audience? And a great lesson, and do not underestimate the audience, that they are very, very intelligent. Because obviously they did get it. I think you would know better than me, but I don't think it was like a runaway hit at the beginning. Brad's told me about it.
Of course, Bradley Whitford.
Bradley Whitford, yes.
Double
Television's Bradley Whitford, as I refer to him officially. He forces me to do that. I don't know. It's weird. But I remember there being a nervousness about it. And I was like, are you kidding? This is the greatest show that's ever been written.
They're like, they're there, young lady.
Yes,
you don't know what we're dealing with behind the scenes.
Yes, I was like 17. I was at Warner Brothers. I was like, this is amazing. So I thought it was like a massive success.
Well, that must have been an interesting lesson for you too, as you started to get older, to realize it isn't just fun and games. Like there's millions of dollars on the line.
Yeah.
You have studio reputations on the line. You have Aaron Sorkin's reputation and everyone who has agreed to be in the show.
Yep.
All of whom I'm sure we're very grateful.
Totally.
But when something doesn't work, it can sort of haunt you as an actor.
Absolutely. I mean, I learned so much from that show. Like, it's interesting you say 25 episodes because to me, I'm like, God, it feels like it was 100 because I feel like it was such a big experience for me. Like getting to work with these actors, Allison Janney, John Spencer, we adore, you know, Bradley Whitford, obviously, Richard Schiff, like just Martin, like it was just so.
It's like a masterclass.
I mean, it was a masterclass. Like you say those names in a lineup and you're like, at 17, you get to watch these people and like learn not only how they are in front of the camera, but that was the thing. I remember Martin Sheen, that man would walk in and he would know everyone's name and he treated everyone the same. And the guy, the background actor who was opening the door for him in the scene got the same treatment as, you know, Brad or Allison. Like he was and remains, of course, such a kind.
Sweet man.
Absolutely. I learned that. And then I also learned how much fun it can be and how you should take your work seriously, but not take yourself seriously. And a lot of that came from Brad.
Interesting.
A lot of how Brad he still does it. He walks onto a set and he lights up the room.
He's a real nerd. He's a theater nerd.
Yes.
He went to Juilliard.
Yes.
This is a guy who probably didn't see himself on a network show.
I know.
He'd worked with Clint Eastwood. I think he's a big movie star. We love you, Bradley.
Yes.
But he maybe didn't necessarily see himself in a show like this. So
Probably
to hear that
not.
is really interesting.
Oh, he would I remember him doing just like stupid bits and like being silly and then snapping right into it and being like, boom, 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 boom dialogue with this incredible Sorkin dialogue and just killing it. And then being really nice to everybody at the same time. And that was where I learned how to be number one, be a number one on the call sheet, not number one. That sounds so weird if you don't know what I'm talking about.
I knew what you meant.
You knew what I meant. Number one on the call sheet. Please don't take that the wrong way, audience. No, that's where I learned how to basically lead a show and how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to treat.
And when you're off camera, that's almost more important than when you're on.
It really is. It is more important. That's 100%.
And treating the crew nicely is number one.
It's everything. It's absolutely everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of that experience.
I'm jealous of that experience.
I never want to be an actor except for right now.
I know.
And you telling me those stories.
It was so cool. It was so cool.
So after you left West Wing, you did a wonderful smattering of guest appearances, and including Grey's Anatomy.
You could call it that.
Ghost Whisperer, Medium, some hot network shows, Elisabeth.
I mean, I did 3 or 4 Law and Orders.
Yes.
Sorry, you're probably getting there.
No. Yeah, please fill in.
3 or 4 Law and Orders. Yeah. Ghost Whisperer, Medium. I feel like we're missing a bunch.
I know.
Anatomy.
This isn't a 6-hour show. I can't be listening to all your credits.
You're right.
What did you enjoy about the experience of being able to pop in for an episode? Because that's also not an easy process. You're having to ingratiate yourself with new cast members, the creators. You're kind of a day player, or maybe you're there for a week. What is the hardest thing, but what did you enjoy about that?
Having a job.
Yes, being employed, number one. Sure.
Absolutely. I gotta say, number one was having a job for sure. Like, it was definitely a period in my life where I was living job to job.
So this is post West Wing, pre Mad Men.
It was like, well, because I was on West Wing like the whole time. Right. I was mainly on the Sorkin years, and then like a little tiny bit
John Wells
on the
took
ensuing.
over for
yeah.
Right.
So I was on like through season 7 of that. So it was like kind of during West Wing, but during the time that I wasn't really on the West Wing.
Right.
So it was definitely having a job. It was definitely like getting to work, getting to act, like that. All of those shows, those single episode arcs got me through years and allowed me to live in New York.
So if somebody saw you on Medium, they would think like, oh, she'd be great for this other thing.
Yeah, or probably West Wing or something, you know. And like those jobs got me through like being able to live in New York, because I moved to New York when I was 18 or 19 to do a play. So I was able to live in New York, and I auditioned for Mad Men in New York.
Right.
So I don't know if that would have happened the same way if I hadn't, you know, I don't know. So it was definitely being able to work. And then it has, like you kind of mentioned, you touched upon, it has given me the utmost respect for the guest actor, because that is so hard. It is really difficult, is a terrible position to be in, to have to walk into a set where everyone knows each other. They've worked together for 5-6 years.
Wow.
And, or longer if it's Grey's Anatomy. And
100 years.
27 years. And you are the odd man out, and you have probably the hardest scene in the episode, and you probably have like the big speech or the big dramatic scene,
right.
and you're the reason why the episode's going to work or not.
And do you have someone in that circumstance kind of guiding you or being your helper for the day? Or are you just kind of thrown in like, good luck?
Thrown in. You are thrown in. And hopefully you have a good director who is kind and able to like help you and understand the process, like a Leslie Linka Glatter. And hopefully you have a kind cast who is able to be tolerant. You know, I've experienced both.
I'm sure you have.
I've experienced,
I won't ask for names.
No. But I've definitely experienced the cast that you feel like is like, they've been there for too long and they're tired. Now I'm on the other side of that.
Right.
I kind of see a little bit more perhaps how they may have felt, you know, and like they're in episode 75 and they're like,
but also you also have a very high standard, not you, but you know, in that situation of Grey's Anatomy, very high standard of excellence. It's a Shondaland show.
Yes.
There's no time for amateur hour.
No.
So
you have to know your lines.
Sides.
Absolutely. Like, exactly. Like, I've experienced the guest actor who unfortunately comes in and maybe doesn't know their lines or hasn't done their homework, and that's not frustrating. Fun. Yeah, it's. But I've also seen the lead actor who does that too. So it's like, you know what I mean.
Again, I'm not going to ask for names.
No, it goes both ways. But it's given me a tremendous. I always try to be like a little extra kind to the day player or the guest actor, especially if they have a lot of lines, and or maybe sometimes they get a little nervous too if it's a show that they're like a fan of.
That can be probably problematic to be fanning out and you're actually supposed to be doing your lines.
Yeah, it's not good. Luckily, I don't think I liked all the shows I was on, but I don't think I was on a show necessarily, except for maybe Grey's.
I was going to say, because you were on Grey's like many years into the run of the show.
So I was already a fan.
Could have kind of been fangirling a little bit.
I was already a fan of Grey's, so that was definitely a little like,
oh my God, Meredith Grey just touched me.
Yes, I remember talking to Katherine Heigl and being like, oh my God, she's talking to me.
Well, obviously you behaved yourself very well, or as far as we know.
Thank you very much.
So I was just looking at your former co-star Christina Hendricks' Instagram feed recently, and it's been 10 years since Mad Men ended.
Got it. Okay.
Let's take a moment to reflect on that.
Yes, that makes
crazy.
Sense. I was 32.
Yes.
Yeah.
2007 to 2015.
Now it feels like it's been 30 years.
Well, I was going to ask, it's almost been 20 since you got the role. That for me is even the more striking thing, like when you probably first read, before you auditioned, etc.
That's weird.
How do you think you've changed as an actor since that show? And I know you still see yourself as that cute little girl on Picket Fences, but the evolution of Peggy throughout the show, I have to imagine there was some connective tissue to your evolution as an artist, not because you didn't have the skills, but because of what you were allowed to do in that job.
Yeah. I think you hit on it. I think I have a lot more freedom now, probably. And not that someone was trying to like not give me freedom at the time, but it just wasn't the position I was in. When I started, I was on Mad Men, I was 23.
Wow.
I was extremely lucky to get the job. I felt I thought I was going to be the secretary the whole time. And I was
How much
very,
did you
very
know
happy.
about Peggy when you read?
Nothing. I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about where she was going to go. I thought I was going to be Don Draper's secretary, and I was perfectly happy with that job. Like, great. You know, sit outside at this desk. Little did I know. And I remember doing a table read, and we had a table read every week for that show.
This was here in LA, downtown.
Yeah,
right?
LA Center Studios. Matt showed us the credits, the opening credits. Matt Weiner showed us the opening credits for the show for the first time. And
the best, right?
So good. And my name was second.
Oof. Right after Jon Hamm.
Yeah. And I turned to him and I said, "Is that on purpose? Are you you're going to make me?" It wasn't in my contract or anything. Okay?
Wow, that's a nice surprise.
Yes, this was the only thing I remembered about watching the credits.
Whoa.
Like at the time, was like, "Why is my name second?"
Wow. And
that was the first time I got any clue that character was going to become something more than sitting outside at that desk.
Well, I found a quote that you had, in referencing this very topic, you said, quote, "I think Matt had a grand plan for Peggy," which I'm glad I didn't know about, because that prevented me from playing her as being more knowing or having more savvy than she should have.
Yeah, very true.
Which is so brilliant on his part that he didn't share that with you.
I think so. I mean, I can't imagine it any other way now, you know?
Of course.
But I do think that she has this innocence that obviously I just couldn't play
Right.
today.
No.
Being 23 at that time. I think that speaking to like what I was saying, I think, or I hope anyway, that I have more tools now. I think I can kind of play more colors. I think at the time there weren't a whole lot of other places that I could maybe go.
Like emotionally.
Yeah, or like I hadn't tried yet. When I did, and I don't mean to like skip forward in my
Please do.
story,
Yes.
but the first time I sort of realized I could play other things on a larger scale was Top of the Lake. That was like the first, and that was the first time I stepped out and was like, can I do something other than Peggy successfully?
Right.
I didn't really know, honestly. I wasn't quite sure.
Right.
And there's a whole story about how I got that part, which we can get to, but like
Yes.
that was definitely the like,
But without Peggy, you may have not had the wherewithal to tackle Top of the Lake.
well, what's interesting though is yes, but she almost didn't cast me, Jane, because of Peggy.
Yes.
She didn't want to cast Peggy Olson from Mad Men.
And she was a fan of Mad Men, but it was just worried you weren't the right person.
Yeah, I mean, how could you think that those two characters would be anything alike?
You
like,
wouldn't.
You would never think that the girl who played Peggy could play Robin.
Yes, Robin.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I cannot believe I remembered that.
I was
by
just
the
going to say,
way.
you got it right. Her name
I
is Robin.
cannot believe
And of course,
that.
we're talking about Jane Campion.
Yes.
And we will get to that in a moment because
Yes.
Jane's my favorite filmmaker of all time.
Oh, good.
So I'll fangirl out on
Yay.
her in a moment. It's so interesting to think about the cast of Mad Men. One of the things that made the cast special for me is that most of you were unknown to us.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen John before. I'd seen Jon Hamm and John Slattery in various things.
Yeah.
I forgot there were two Johns.
Yeah.
Different spellings.
Yep.
But otherwise, I hadn't really seen Christina. Vincent Kartheiser, oddly, I had been a PA on a movie that he had made.
Really?
Yes, so that was a crazy experience.
Uh-huh.
But really, it felt like the world was being introduced to this whole ensemble of people at the same time.
Yeah.
How did it feel to be navigating fame together? Because there wasn't like a James Gandolfini and everyone else. You were all sort of equal.
Yeah.
And I know James would never have thought of himself as being the star of Sopranos, but he did loom the largest. Whereas this show, like, you had a juicy arc. Christina had a juicy arc. Everyone was given space.
Yeah.
So was it a comfort to be going through that together?
It was honestly so fun. Like, it was awesome. I think not because of the fame part, but because we were so proud of the show. So to be a part of something that you really did feel was really good.
Right.
And was really special. And that to have other people recognize that and was just awesome.
It's a rare synergy.
It doesn't happen.
It really
It
doesn't.
really doesn't happen. And I think we knew that enough because even though none of us were famous, January was, I think, the most famous.
True.
Love
She made the
Actually.
rounds. Yes, Love Actually, right.
So she was like, she had done movies
good
and
point.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So she was the most famous, but we all were jobbing actors.
Right.
So we all had been doing it forever, just had never become famous. So none of us were like new to the business. So none of us were cocky. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So none of us got attitudes or a little big for our britches or
Except
anything.
Jon Hamm. I know he's a real problem on set.
Absolutely. But always was.
Always was.
You know
Just
what I
a-
mean?
a
Just
diva
kind of
out of the
born
gate.
that way. But yeah, so none of us really were cocky about it. So we were grateful and we were
Right.
excited and it was amazing and awesome and so cool. But like we weren't like, well, obviously we're going
Right.
to have this kind of success. We always, I think, felt like misfits.
Well, also, this was a giant experiment for AMC.
Well,
they didn't
yeah.
know that this was going to be a hit. It wasn't like you were on an established network like HBO or NBC. This was a giant experiment for Matt, for you. And so that probably cushioned some of that expectation.
Yes, it was a solid like 2 years before people started to like stop calling it A&E. It was like definitely like you were like, nope, AMC.
Very different network with very different programming.
Yes. I remember the first time we felt like people were watching or like we were a quote unquote success was the Golden Globes, and it was during the writer's strike.
Oh, right.
So we weren't actually at the Golden Globes, and it was Grey's Anatomy was like at its height, and Shonda Rhimes was actually at our party at some point at Chateau Marmont, and we thought like for sure Grey's Anatomy was going to win, and then we won the Golden Globe and John won, and we were like, wait, what?
Whoa,
This
wow.
is crazy.
The foreign journalists at least loved you.
Yes.
At least you knew that.
Yes, exactly. And
Right.
anyone was watching. That was the
Right.
thing, too. It was like, oh, my God, anyone's watching? This is crazy.
And then you'd go on to win Best Drama Series at the Emmys 4 times.
Is that right?
Yes,
Wow.
4 times.
Yeah.
That
It's
really.
pretty good.
I need to revisit. I need to watch it again for the 10th time. In your relationship with Jon Hamm, I know you're good buddies.
Yeah.
What have you taken from him, not only as an actor, but as a friend? I know you guys have stayed in touch, and he's very good at being successful, being kind, also now making shows, having more of a leadership role in his work, much like you. Have you guys swapped stories about kind of these latest chapters in your life?
I feel like it's kind of like what I said earlier. Everything always comes from the top. You know what I mean? So when you're like number one on the call sheet, you set the tone for the set, and you really establish for everybody what the energy is, especially amongst the actors. And because I think Jon had already been working for 20 years or 15 years or whatever it was, there wasn't a cockiness, even though he became so successful and was the face of the show.
Yeah.
And this iconic character in the zeitgeist, which is a different level
Very different.
of fame, you know. He was always, as people have said before me, and people know, he was always the goofiest person in the room and is always the silliest person in the room, and just the first person who will make fun of himself, you know, and that never changed.
So it's almost as if he chose to never take himself too seriously.
It seems like it.
Right.
And he takes the work very seriously. I mean, you have to, you know, like anyone, you have to show up, know your lines, you have to do a good job. Like, he does expect that. But it just never felt like it was about him. It felt like it was about us as an ensemble. And it didn't feel like he changed from season 1 to the end. That's really hard. It's really rare, and it's really hard to do.
Wow. And he finally won at the end, the lead
Yes.
actor Emmy. We were all very happy for him.
Very overdue.
That was cathartic for
Yeah,
everyone.
I think it was good for everybody. I think
Yes.
everybody was like, okay, good. Because that would have been really, really weird.
Yes. After all that would have definitely been
Yeah.
a missed opportunity.
Doesn't really make sense.
So you already brought up Top of the Lake, one of my other favorite series in your roster of work. And you did play Robin Griffin. So well
There
done.
we
You remembered
go.
her name.
Can't believe that.
And I know, and actually in 2013, you told me this. I went back to find this quote.
Oh.
That Jane told you to think about when you were auditioning because you were worried. She said, you don't have to hit the bullseye, just get the dart on the board.
Yeah.
Which I really love that advice. How did you apply that to the way you pushed yourself for this role?
Such a generous thing to say
Yeah, it
to
is.
an actor. Like, my God, I spoke to her on the phone. I was so nervous to even talk to her on the phone, you know, because my audition I was like put on tape and sent to her. She allowed that to be true the entire time we shot for both seasons. She has the most accurate description of how I like to work from what I've heard her say. But I think this is something she provides to all of her actors. But she described me as, she was like, you want to know exactly what your box is that you're in on set or in the scene. And then you want to be left alone to play within that box. And she's absolutely right. But I think that's kind of what she allows for everybody. I saw her give the same generosity, freedom, space, comfort, safety to like a person who had never acted before, and it was their first day on set, 'cause she's a fan of hiring people who have like never acted before.
She casts a lot of very natural looking people.
Yes, to great success.
Yes.
And she would be just as caring and like to the point of where like, if I may have lost my patience a little bit at some point with some people, and you just never saw her lose her patience ever.
Wow.
She would treat Nicole Kidman with the same, like, giving her space and safety as this actor who it was their first day. And that's extraordinary, that ability to. And she also, and I learned this as a director, probably the number one thing I've learned as a director, I learned just from watching her. It was not something anyone told me, which was, you have to direct the actor in front of you, and all the actors are different. So she would.
So depending on who she was talking to, her approach would shift.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I'm a very different actor than Nicole Kidman or Holly or, you know, whoever. And she would give me what I needed, and she was able to give that actor what they needed. And
it requires a lot of emotional intelligence.
yes, absolutely. And the same, but it never felt false. It never felt like she was pretending or placating or anything like that. It just, she knew what that actor needed and was able to adapt to what that actor needed. It's so interesting.
Oh, The Piano changed my life.
Yeah.
And it's the movie that made me fall in love with filmmaking really as a, I was a teenager, but still it really just a work of art.
Yeah.
I think about that movie daily almost.
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is. I mean, she's just the most extraordinary woman. And have you met her?
I have. She's really special.
Isn't she special?
Yeah.
She just is like, when you're talking to her, it's like no one else is in the room. She only sees you.
Just laser focus.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And she's so smart, and just, she's very, very generous, but not a pushover.
No.
You know, there's a difference, and she's extremely strong.
You can't be a woman filmmaker and be a pushover in this world.
It doesn't work. No.
It does not work.
No.
So I want to talk about a quirky little movie you made called Her Smell.
Yeah.
And now that I know more about the music part of your life growing up, and in this movie, of course, which came out in 2018, one of the 3 you've made with Alex Ross Perry, you play a self-obsessed rock singer and guitarist named Becky Something, which I love. And knowing now how much music was a part of your life, who or what inspired this portrayal? Did you meet someone in your life, or through your parents' work, or even through your own living in LA in the music scene, where you thought like, okay, I'm going to pull that from her, pull that from him? Or how much of this was a creation on the page that Alex created for you?
It was kind of all of the above. I didn't know anyone in like personally that I drew from, but it was very much on the page. But what we had talked about and what he was like putting on the page was this kind of combination of Amy Winehouse, Courtney Love at a certain time, Janis Joplin. Like, it was kind of this amalgamation of all of these people, but kind of at their worst moments.
Right. Well, that's why it's fun to watch, right?
Exactly. Not on the good days.
Functional people are not fun to watch.
No. You don't want to see like the balanced person. It's not as interesting. No. Although we did have one act of slight balance, but we quickly veered back into chaos.
Of course.
So it was kind of based on all of those women and no one in particular, but also Kurt Cobain just as much as Courtney Love. You know what I mean? It wasn't, that was another thing we talked about. It wasn't just based on female singers or band leaders. It was, or musicians. I was taking from men as well. So there was a lot of Marilyn Monroe. There was some Elvis Presley later in his life. Like just anyone that basically had, obviously a substance problem mixed in with demons, mixed in with artistic brilliance. And
there are a lot of examples of that in our culture.
There's a few in Hollywood of those kind of people.
One or two.
Yeah. So it was really a combo. And then it was also this person that he just wrote. I mean,
she's for people who haven't seen this movie, it's a trip. And I have to say, you look like you're having the time of your life in this movie. I could see it was like the Lizzie that was waiting to come out of her shell for many years.
I have a thing with Alex where, and actually it's so funny because I've been meaning to text him because we're overdue for another movie. But I have a thing with him where I basically have asked him to just challenge me every time he writes a script and to try to write something that I can't do.
Wow.
That's his challenge.
It's becoming a taller order by the day with you because your skills are ever expanding.
Well, thank you. But it has resulted in him writing some of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
I love that.
Including the first movie we did together was this movie, Listen Up, Philip, with Jason Schwartzman.
Of course, yeah.
And he had a smaller role in that, but he had written this scene, and it was just in the stage direction that he wrote that my character was supposed to have this complete breakdown and then pull herself together. And that's when I fell in love with Alex as a writer, because I was like, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I would like to try to do. Thank you so much. I don't know how to do that. That looks really hard.
Wow.
And that since
it's like
then,
having a trainer.
Yes, exactly.
Like forcing you to do burpees.
Exactly. I hate burpees.
Oh my God,
I'd
me
much
too.
rather have a breakdown.
The worst. Burpees are sanctioned torture, in my opinion.
Are. Come on.
So we spoke recently about a track that you used in Handmaid's Tale, that Radiohead song. In the episode that you directed. I think it was
the first episode.
The first episode you directed. We talked about our shared love for Radiohead.
Yeah.
What is your favorite concert that you attended as a young person? And what's your favorite album? Since clearly you love music.
Radiohead at the Hollywood Bowl.
Ooh.
God, I'm trying to it might be a little fuzzy on what album it was, but I was in my late teens.
Okay.
So whenever that
OK Computer, probably?
Probably OK Computer. Oh my God, isn't that cool? I
so-
saw the OK Computer concert.
I am so jealous.
I know.
They're the one band that I adore that I have never seen live.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
I've seen them. I think I saw them 3 times live. Oh. I know, and it's good. It's what you want it to be. I'm so sorry. But I remember Tom York came out and did an acoustic True Love Waits.
Oh, wow.
Just him on the stage.
Wow.
It's not anything you forget.
No.
Ever.
Hollywood Bowl is like my church. It's where I go down the street.
I mean, it truly is a church. It's like it is such a special place. So probably that show I will never ever forget.
Wow.
Yeah.
So lucky to live in LA too, when you have those kind of opportunities.
Oh my God, absolutely. I used to be able to go just see shows like that. Like, it was amazing.
LA can be a pretty cool place.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's, I mean, even now it's even better. So many things.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about 2 wonderful horror movies that you made.
Okay,
Somewhat
good.
back to back, Us by Jordan Peele. Oh my God, I rewatched it. It's so terrifying. And The Invisible Man, which I have to tell you was the last movie I saw at the ArcLight before it closed.
Yeah.
Right before lockdown.
That makes sense.
So I always associate you with lockdown.
Interesting.
Not
Apologies.
really because
Sorry about that.
not really, but I associate the key art from the movie.
Yeah.
I rewatched Us recently. Like, it's hard to talk about this movie because it's so nuts. But I wanted to know what surprised you about the way Jordan tells stories.
Yeah.
And especially this particular story. And if people haven't seen it, Lupita Nyong'o, of course. So terrifying. You, Tim Heidecker, is just a fantastic cast.
Yeah.
Tim, that's a whole other question, a whole other line of questioning.
Adore him. Adore him.
Very funny man.
Yeah.
But this is obviously after Get Out, and he had, was sort of perfecting his approach to telling these kind of stories. What surprised you as an actor?
I think how relaxed he was and how much fun he was having.
Was he silly on set?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But
I
not
imagine you'd have to be.
Yeah, but not in like a doing bits way. There was no one that enjoyed the take more than Jordan. Like, there was no one that thought it was scarier or funnier or more fantastic. Like, there was no one more enthusiastic, but not in like a big way, in a very kind of just like, this is the coolest thing we get to do every day way. And I remember him calling me before we started and talking about the character, which I thought was so nice. Like, I didn't have the biggest part in the movie, but he really just like took his time with me, and he wanted to hear what I had to say about it. And I thought that was so nice.
Are you blown away when people want to be that collaborative?
I am. Okay. Especially somebody who, I mean, he'd just come out of the success of Get Out. And I think that he didn't like, I mean,
he was definitely the hot ticket.
Yeah. And you just didn't feel like that. You felt like this was an indie movie that he was making with his friends. And that's really what the set felt like. And it was relaxed and fun.
Do you have bad dreams at night when you're shooting a movie like this?
No.
Okay.
Because the reality of it is so ridiculous.
I'm sure.
Like, the reality is so stupid. Like, there are so many times on Invisible Man where, because a lot of the gags were like not VFX. A lot of the stuff was like in camera or just using like really old school tricks on that movie.
That's why I love that movie.
I think
and Lee Wanell directed it. And of course, he co-created Saw.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing.
And we used the Blumhouse model. So it was low budget. There wasn't a lot of money. Right. And it didn't feel like it was a big budget movie, and it felt like we were doing things the way they may have done them 50 years ago.
Right.
And it worked, and so there was something about that with Us as well. Even though it definitely was very professional, it felt like Jordan kind of got a bunch of his friends together to make a movie.
Right.
It was very cool, and he was just very supportive, and I just thought that was very kind.
Now we come to The Handmaid's Tale, and I saved it for last for obvious reasons, as we have said goodbye to the series. It's so hard to encapsulate the show, your work in the show, but also its meaningfulness in the culture in a very short period. But I do want to ask, what was your first reaction when you read Margaret Atwood's novel? When did you read the novel for the first time? And then when the show became part of your life, how did the novel feel different to you at that point in the time, that you had grown up the culture had changed. Did it have a different resonance for you at that point?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had read it when I was a teenager, but it was kind of one of those books that you read.
It's on the like assigned reading list.
Yes, right. And it was like, I loved it, but it wasn't, I love that. I love 1984. Like it was,
right.
It was like, great, good.
Catcher in the Rye.
Yes, yes, we've done those books now.
Right.
And obviously beautiful, but when you're looking at something like you're going to play the role, it's very different. So it was good actually, because when I read the script, I had a fuzzy memory of the book. And
that's
so,
good.
Yeah, so I was able to really read it like a viewer, which I think is really, really important.
Could you see it spelled out as a show?
It's so hard to, it's so hard to see now because now I only know what, you know what I mean? What the show is. So I feel like at the time, probably no. I think it was only when Reed came on and she did the lookbook and
she's a cinematographer.
She was a cinematographer, and then she directed the first 3. And she did this 60-70 page lookbook, and which has intimidated me ever since. She is
amazing.
Yeah, and she did a soundtrack that we had to like listen to while we looked at the lookbook, and and so
there's a reason she won the Emmy for the first episode.
Yes, and so I think it was after that I could see the show, but I don't think reading it necessarily I saw what the show was going to become as it did. I just knew that there was something so special about the material and so special about the role, and I couldn't imagine anyone else playing that part.
And did Bruce Miller, who created the series, did he come to you first, as far as you know?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I think I've heard yes, but I don't know if they'd be honest with me about.
You're the first person he called.
Let's go with the first.
And before we talk about how you wrapped the series, I do want to talk about your directing experience on the show.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that you had never even made a short film.
No.
Lizzie, people had a lot of trust in you. I don't know what and you directed 10 episodes across the series. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know. My first thing directing ever was like for Hulu.
Right. You didn't even have to make a little short that no one saw. You went straight for the big guns.
Yeah.
What surprised you the most about how much you loved directing? Because I know you do.
Yeah.
But what aspect of it surprised you in terms of the process that you liked
working with the actors?
Okay.
I really thought that, and I still am, very visual centric.
It's the ballet training.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love choreography, and I love the camera, and I love all the bells and whistles and tricks and stuff, and I love genre things, and so I love all of that. I didn't know I was going to love working with the actors as much as I did, and I also didn't know how much I was going to value the acting part of it. Like, as I think maybe because I've done it for so long, it's like the thing you do. It's not important. It's not, I know behind this curtain, you know what I mean?
Right.
I know what actually happens with actors. But when you do, my best example of it is in that episode, the first one I did, which is episode 403. I had a scene with Ann Dowd, and we had all these things planned and this exciting visual stuff, and it all looked gorgeous and it all looked amazing. It's an amazing set. Nothing mattered except for her face in the frame. Nothing mattered except for her performance. And it was a real eye-opening moment as a, person in this art form, that's really all that matters.
So in that moment, you're shutting out all the periphery and just focusing on her.
Yes. Okay. And it's better than anything else we could have ever planned or prepped or created, or any fun camera equipment or all that stuff is wonderful and super fun. But when you get an actress like Ann Dowd and it's a close-up of her, I mean, I feel like
one of the greatest faces of all time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's all that matters. And I didn't know that until I started directing.
And think about how people have felt that about you over the years.
Well, that's very kind.
No, but think about all those Mad Men directors who saw you the way you saw Anne.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. It's very nice. But
no, it's true.
Thank you. It has made me value acting in a way that I think I didn't in my.
Or maybe renewed your love.
Maybe renewed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it made me think of it in a different way. And I'm really grateful for that. The first bigger scene I did was with Brad and Max. And I was like, oh my God, I
How
cannot
did it feel to be
believe.
directing Bradley?
I was so nervous.
Really? Were you most nervous about him?
Yeah. Well, no, probably Ann Down. I was probably most nervous about Ann Down.
She's a very intense performer.
She is, and she's
a very sweet woman, but she is really intense.
And when she's in it, she's in it.
She's in it.
And you have to be like,
she's not cracking jokes on the side.
she actually like but she can also sort of stay in character. And if the character's Aunt Lydia, you gotta be careful. But it was having to go and talk to Bradley Whitford and tell him what to do. I was like,
was he giggling at all? Like, who is this kid thinks she is, trying to tell me how to do my job?
He was so kind. Aww. I think he knew how, of course, nervous I would have been. And he was just very, sweet. He went easy on me. Now, of course, he just gives me endless amount of shit. And like literally, I'm like,
you've
will you
earned
please
it, that's why.
Take me seriously? I am your director. You have to listen to me.
And he's directed too. So you guys have had equal power play there.
Yes, exactly.
So you've directed 4 episodes of the final season.
Yeah.
Amazing episodes. And the 2 at the end are quite intense, where June is being potentially killed.
Yes.
Okay. That's obviously not you hanging from the crane.
Correct.
How did you execute that scene? And what was the toughest part of that day?
Pun intended. There was actually a 3-day with a second unit day experience shooting that scene. It actually went really well.
It did.
Yeah. Like it wasn't, as you've heard many times, you make a movie in prep, you make a show in prep. So hopefully when you show up on that day, you're just executing, you're doing what you need to do and you're following the plan. And if you need to make a change, you've also planned for that change as well.
And you have great stunt people on hand.
Absolutely. You have great stunt people. You have great actors. There have been 2 times that I've had to do big sequences that have taken. The funeral that I did in season 5 took a couple days. This was the biggest thing that we had ever done on the show.
Wow.
The most amount of extras. So you're asking for a lot of patience from people. You're asking for a lot of background actors to be standing out in the cold for a long time. You're asking them to be, patient with you, to have to do it over and over. And you're asking the same of the actors who have to come in, do something, and then go back and wait for 2 hours. So that's kind of, sometimes on those days, that can be the most stressful thing. And just to have a cast and a crew and a company of background actors who were so kind and patient and giving and generous and nice and didn't get mad at us.
And not complaining.
Not complaining and, just making sure that they got fed and all of that. That was the greatest gift of those few days. That's the thing that can be, I think, for me, the most stressful. Everything else, you're just kind of doing it shot after shot and getting it done. The biggest hill I had to climb was the speech that I had to do. And sometimes on those days, that's the hardest thing, because that's the time that amongst everything else, I have to kind of put everything aside and I have to just be an actor. And I have to really...
And that's an iconic moment.
It's kind of a big moment. And I had a lot of words and I wanted to get it right and I wanted to get the shot right. And it was just... And so that, once I got that done, which I think we did on the second day, I felt great. Once that was out of the way,
sort of relaxed and direct.
Absolutely. Everything else was easy peasy from there. Jen Murray did my stunt.
Bless her heart.
She's incredible. I've worked with her for years. She was just so good. She's so good. And she did an amazing job.
And then the scene, of course, where June says goodbye to Commander Lawrence.
Yeah.
And he takes his briefcase onto the plane. Yeah. And I don't know if people have seen this at this point. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it yet, but let's just say it's an explosive ending to that episode. And you are crouched behind the car watching this as June. How did that scene feel? Because that, for me, is the scene of the entire series. And again, we won't spoil for those who haven't seen, but tell me about the feelings that you were having in that moment as Elisabeth, but also as June.
Yeah. So backing up a bit, when I heard the pitch in 2023, Eric pitched the outline for that. Eric Tuckman, who wrote the episode and also is our co-showrunner and executive producer of many years, he wrote that episode and brilliantly. And he pitched this outline when I was shooting this show, The Veil. And I knew it as I was listening to it. I went, I need to direct that episode.
Wow. If
that's going to happen at the end, I have to be the person who does that one. Fast forward to shooting it, it was definitely one of the most obviously important nights of the episode, of the block. And, we planned it within an inch of its life. there are three interesting things. I'll be quick. One, I shot the final shot of June looking up at the sky first.
Interesting.
Yeah, because...
Why'd you do that?
Because I knew that was probably the most important moment, and I didn't want that to be at 4 a.m. And I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be rushing that at 4 a.m. I didn't want to feel like we were going to shortchange that moment. I wanted to do a lot of takes. The lighting rig was tricky. The camera move was tricky. The move in on the crane, not an easy move to make. And it's cold night. You don't know if the wind's going to start blowing, if things are going to start going wrong.
You kind of have to grab the shot when you can.
Yeah, it was the most important shot of the episode. And I was like, we're going to get that right. We're not. So we did that first. I made the boys wait. They were fine.
Were they a big moment?
They're fine, yeah. Then we brought him out. I remember Brad putting his hand over his heart. That was his idea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right before he boards the plane.
Yeah.
That's a very special
I get chills
addition.
talking about it.
Me too.
Yeah. It was a very... Obviously, I was watching as a director off camera, and I knew that was going to be the one that was going to be in the show. There's no way, because that was pure Brad. Wow. Like, if you know Brad...
It's almost like him saying goodbye to the show, too.
Yeah.
Saying goodbye to this experience.
It was him saying goodbye to this whole journey for him, I think, on the show, saying goodbye to the character, saying goodbye to his relationship with my character. And it was a little bit of a chapter ending for us as well. I've known him for 25 years. So I think we plan on doing at least 7 more shows together. But
as time will allow.
Yes, exactly. But we have many jokes about the older version. Do not get me started. There's a whole bit on the, 90-something, he's 90-something, I'm 70-something. There's a lot of jokes about that. But he's in a wheelchair for sure. But
it's a sequel to Get Out, actually.
Yes, exactly. So his hand over his heart was him. That was all Brad. And then the last interesting thing is probably that all my coverage was done with none of them there.
Really?
Yeah. So I sent them all home.
You were all by yourself crouching behind that car.
Yes. I sent them all home because I wasn't going to be able to see them anyway.
Right.
The eye line has to be tight, etc. And I said, go home. You've been here all night. And that was like one of the last things we did. And I just did various reactions to things happening. Which, by the way,
you don't want yourself, by the way.
Yeah, you don't want to know how many times that is in the show. Just me doing various reactions to things happening in one long take and then cutting it together.
I need to see all those extras at some point.
Yes, I know. Oh my God, it'd be embarrassing.
So when you remove the socio-political underpinnings of The Handmaid's Tale, what is this story about to you outside of the cultural kind of hot button topics, of course, that the show tackled and that we have been talking about all these years?
Yeah. It's sort of the same thing at the end that it was at the beginning for me. And the first thing that I kind of felt about it was I felt that it was about survival. I felt that it was about this sort of most basic thing that this woman, mother, wife, friend needs to survive for her child. And it was the most simple idea and the most, for me, resonant. It got me to my core. And I felt like if I could tap into that, if I could tap into this idea of survival, that then there was something in that the audience could understand. And there was something in that they would feel too, that it would resonate with them. And I don't think you have to be a mother to understand that. I don't think you have to be a wife to understand that. I think it is a basic thing about us as humans. And I felt like that was it. It was as simple as that. And what's so crazy about that final scene and that final episode is it's the same exact thing at the end. Right. At the end, it just
you mean Jane's in the bedroom?
Yeah. At the end, it just felt like this woman who needed to survive in order to...
And she revisits her imprisonment.
Yeah.
The place where she lost everything.
Yeah.
And then on her terms is going to tell her story.
Yeah. And that's
brilliant.
One of the ways that she's going to survive into the future is by telling her story. And which is just such a great... that's art. That's art for me anyway, is we're telling our stories in order to survive into the future. And I think there was a full circle nature to that on a very personal level is very meaningful to me.
Very, very resonant.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
Yeah.
Well, just amazing work.
Thank you.
Really, just perfect ending, perfect show. Couldn't have gone better.
Oh, thank you.
We'll see how the Nick fans feel.
I know.
Nick fans may have some conflicted ideas about
Eric and I were joking today. Eric Tuckman, who wrote the episode, we were joking today about how we were going to have to go into the witness protection program.
It's going to have to be a mass, moment of silence.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Nick.
Although I feel like there's some Team Luke people out there going to be pretty happy. I've definitely already heard some people being like, not even knowing what happens in 9.
Yeah.
I've definitely already heard people being like, well, I was always Team Luke. So,
Well, now you are after the fact. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact that people are this invested, hey, that's what we dream of, right?
We're so lucky, honestly. We're so lucky. It's the coolest thing ever.
And you deserve it.
Thank you.
And tell me about Imperfect Women. What do you have coming up with this amazing project?
Yeah. So this is a show that actually is super important to me because it was the first thing I bought for my company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I read it back in 2019. So for anyone that thinks that you just make a TV show as if it's just, that's not
even
how it happens.
Even Elisabeth Moss takes 6 years to get something made, right?
Oh, yeah. It's not easy. So I read it in 2019. I sent it to my producing partner, Lindsay, before we even started working together, before we had a deal. And she said, you got to get this book. I said, I agree. So we got the book. Here we are. We're making it for Apple TV Plus. And, but with my parent company of 20th. So it's still in the,
still in the
family. And it's me, Kerry Washington, Kate. It's the coolest cast ever. It's me, Kerry Washington, Kate Mara, Corey Stoll, Joel Kinnaman, Leslie Odom Jr., Keith Carradine. I mean, it's like a very cool cast. And, it's a thriller.
Very good.
Yes.
And you're shooting in Los Angeles, which is so wonderful considering how much we need work here.
Thank you.
So
I know.
That's excellent. For whoever made that decision, I don't know if it was your decision, but I know people are very grateful.
Yeah, well, it was our decision. It came about from sort of a practical reason, and we were able to say yes to it. But also the idea of being able to bring a show to LA was really exciting for us. And we are aware that we have to bring work here. And it's interesting. I was at, what lot was I? I was at Fox, of course, the other day, and we're one of the only people there.
It's very eerie, isn't it?
Yeah, I was talking to Leslie, and she was like, we're on one of the only shows here. And I just was like, I'm so glad we're here then. I'm so glad.
I hope others follow.
I think I'm a positive person. I do think I do think they will. We just have to help them to be able to shoot here.
Yes, and hopefully that will inspire creators to then put that in their contracts.
Yes, exactly. And this just, you can't beat the crews in LA.
No.
It's like, so to be able to work with the people who actually work here, everyone is so excited to be home and be able to work, And
be able to just go home at the end of the day and not a hotel.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. We're also getting the chance to, I think, show in LA that doesn't usually get shown or hasn't been shown in a while. It's not period. It doesn't really take place on a beach.
Right. LA can be so many things.
Yeah, we were in Echo Park the other day, and it just felt like we were shooting in LA that we all kind of know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the East Side.
Yeah. The real LA.
It's my favorite because I live over here, so it's my favorite part of LA.
Yeah.
But there's just boundless opportunities here.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping whoever hears this, go LA. We need you. We need your work.
I agree.
So Elisabeth, we've come to the end of this journey.
Oh my God.
We could go on for days and days and days, but we shall not. We have to end this conversation. So my final questions for you are, what do you hope people take away from hearing your Hollywood story?
Oh boy. What do I feel like they take away? I hope that this is kind of what I always try to tell any younger actor or actor kind of coming up in the business, that it is, Warren Littlefield has a great phrase that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I truly feel like that about being an actor. And I feel like that about this industry, art form, whatever you want to call it, that it is not something that ever happens for anyone overnight. And I've been acting for 36 years.
36?
Yeah.
Wow.
36 years. And I've had more times being unemployed than employed, and more times living off of residuals than having a choice about what project to do. Like, that part of my career is only the recent part. And I know that I have listened to many stories from actors and been inspired by the amount of work that they put in. So I hope that the amount of work that I've put in maybe gives somebody some inspiration.
I think that will be the case. And then the last part of this question is, what have you learned about yourself in sharing your story today?
Oh, Lord. Sometimes I think you get sort of bogged down, but you live day to day and you're thinking about the script you have to read out there and how is this going and the budget thing and the bubba and the pitch and whatever. And you lose a little bit of the larger view. And when you sit here as an accomplished journalist, as you are.
Well, thank you very much.
No, very true. And I'm a huge admirer of yours.
Oh,
and you go through the various things that I've done. I sit here and go like, wow.
Are you impressed with yourself?
Like a little bit, but it's impressed, but it's also just, I feel grateful. Like I feel a sense of, I lose track of that as well, because for me, I'm just.
You're a very industrious person. You're always looking to keep working. You're
Next
not reflecting
project.
on.
Exactly.
I think it is good to remind yourself.
It's kind of amazing to sit and go like, wow, I have actually done quite a few things I'm very proud of, and worked with quite a few people that I feel very fortunate to have worked with. And I don't sit around and think about that every day. I don't do an introspective.
You don't have time.
I don't do it every morning. I don't go through my Hollywood story every morning.
You don't have time to do this every single day? Because you're coming back here tomorrow. We're doing this again.
Listen, I pitched the 10-part version of this, so don't tempt me. I don't know why you have other guests. I feel like this is a whole
Actually,
season.
I'm going to cancel everyone else.
You don't need those people. Nick Kroll, who?
Well, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations. I cannot wait to see what you do next. And you're quite a role model for anyone looking to tell amazing stories. So I hope you can enjoy that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
My Hollywood Story is a production of Hippolyta Films and Entertainment. It is produced by me, Stacey Wilson Hunt, along with Sonia Slutsky and Wendy Green. Series producers also include Daryl Young and Janet Grayson. Our sound mixer is Luke Tierney, with camera by Ramiro Cantu. My Hollywood Story is edited by Nathaniel Wixon, with original music by Madi Gabriel and Jenny Carr of Moon and Star. Our logo design is by Brad Mitchell, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Champion Turf. My Hollywood Story is sponsored by Mattel Films and recorded at Neue House Hollywood. If you like what you hear, give us a follow, leave a review, and let us know what you think.